as women, we're socialized to actually have low desire because we take care of more of the household work. So there's work inequality. There is the socialization of women being like, don't desire too much because then you might be a slut, because women who like sex too much, we don't like them either. So really you're like never encouraged to be like, what do I desire? What do I like? Am I allowed to even say I'm a person who desires? So there's all this socialization that happens to women, specifically when partnered with men, because they're the ones who are supposed to initiate. We're the gatekeepers. Again, this is all like gender norms and stuff like that. And so I'm like, you know what? We are biopsychosocial humans. We're not always, oh, I just have low dopamine. Oh, I just have low testosterone.
This is the Man Up Podcast, Doctor's Guide to Men's Health. Each week on our podcast, we interview the top specialists of the field on various topics in men's health. You have questions that you are too afraid to ask, we have the answers. This week, our episode is titled She Comes First, Understanding Female Sexual Health with Dr. Kelly Casperson. I'm Dr. Kevin Chu, and I'm joined as always with my co-host, Dr. Justin Dubin. How goes, Justin?
Good. I'm ready for the Super Bowl. Who you got? Well, we're gonna put this out on the Monday after Super Bowl, so we're either gonna look really smart.
Hey,
or
so our listeners will be able to call us out on this. I think the Eagles got it. I think they're got an unstoppable offense. Who do you think?
I don't disagree with you. I think the Eagles are probably the most dominant team, but as a Giants fan, I refuse. I'm going on Kansas City. We're on to Kansas City here. This is the Kansas.
Either way, I think it's going to be a great game. So, hopefully when this is, aired, it wasn't like some blowout or something like that.
Right. No, but I think chances are, I think Eagles are going to win, but I'm hoping for Kansas City. I agree.
Dude, on another sports note, what do you think of LeBron passing Kareem?
Oh,
I'm not a big LeBron fan. Sorry, LeBron, if you're listening, but
I had a couple friends who were there actually yesterday. They said it was pretty awesome. I watched it, and then I watched the Lakers just get destroyed. They suck as a team, so I really, it's pretty funny.
Oh, they just blockbuster trade though right now.
I didn't see it.
Westbrook,
I was at dinner. So. They unloaded Westbrook. It's about time. They've been trying to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, Russell, if you're listening too. But Westbrook's off, and the Lakers got what's that guy? He's from the Timber. Oh, they got D'Angelo Russell back.
I like D'Angelo Russell though. I like D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, so
that's good. Listen, it's I don't think about basketball until football season's done. So I'm getting ready now in the next 2 weeks to transition my brain to basketball. Going to Heat game on Friday. So, that's the first step in, getting my brain into basketball. First basketball game of the season, So I'm getting there, but usually, I love watching basketball. I love the playoffs. NBA playoffs are so fun. But let's get back into why we're here. It's February. We've been focusing on the themes of relationships in regards, Valentine's Day is coming up. I think it's
right.
And so, we highlighted some of the dating episode from our previous dating episode last week, and we had Dr. Stryker on, and we felt like this was a natural follow-up. We're joined by Dr. Kelly Casperson, and we're going to be talking about female sexual health and take a little bit, we started with anatomy and understanding a lot of that with Dr. Stryker, but we're going to go into desire, hormones, mismatches in relationships, keeping, sexual health even in women and understanding that in women. Because I think guys, often we're worried about just ourselves and being able to get it up. But, you have a partner out there. And if there's problems there too that we can't identify, then, there's going to be relationship issues as well.
Yeah. I think in this episode, we touch on a lot of things that are very interesting. And I think a lot of things that guys don't know. Some things that come off my mind, we talk about, testosterone is quite often, thought of being synonymous with guys, but it's actually important in females to a certain extent. Additionally, I think we talk about menopause and its effect on females. And so, a lot of things I didn't know and I learned. I'm sure same for you, Justin, but it's things that are important for guys to know because, if your partner's a female, there's going to be a lot of things that they're going through, right,
Yeah, I
Justin?
think that the menopause thing is very important because our physiology as guys change. Obviously, our bodies change, but also after menopause, women go through a really significant changes in their bodies, and that can impact your
Right.
sex life, their sexual health, and impact your sex life as a couple. So I think that it's a really important. We get some important information here to really understand that. So I think that was a great highlight. So just to give a background of Dr. Kelly Casperson, she's a urologist. She's an author and podcaster. She does a really wonderful podcast called You Are Not Broken. The mission of the podcast and the book is to empower women to live their best lives. The book is of the same name as well, You Are Not Broken, and it explores what makes women physiologically unique and provides readers with tips and tricks to live the sex lives they want. She's, as I said, she's an outstanding podcaster, and she's the host of the
Yeah.
You Are Not Broken podcast, in which she discusses similar topics. I think she recently had over 1 million downloads. So she's really one of the lead voices in this topic. And we were very, very lucky to have her on today, or on this episode.
All right. So, hey, I think we should just jump straight in, right?
Let's do it. Have a great week, everyone. Go Kansas City Chiefs, but it's over. But I hope they won. Let me be the first to congratulate the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, wow. Please
Super
put this
Bowl.
guy on blast if he is wrong. Please put this guy on blast.
Also, have a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Valentine's Day.
Wow, this guy's all over the place right now.
It's late.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. All right, let's get into the episode. So, recently we discussed female anatomy in general on our previous podcasts and exploring the clitoris and the vagina, but we really didn't discuss, other aspects of female sexual health, and specifically when it comes to desire. Now, Dr. Casperson, you're really leading the way in these kinds of conversations with patients, online, with your podcast. And how do you think about sexual desire? And are there differences in sexual desire and how it's experienced between men and women?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. It's a huge topic. It's the number when you study women, it's their number one, complaint or issue with their sexual activity. And desire is super fascinating because some is, the biopsychosocial thing of sex med of like some
Right.
people will be like, it's dopamine, it's testosterone. They want to like parse it down to just like a chemical that's deficient in your brain. So that's that school of thought. Then there's the school of thought of like, more of the sex therapists of like desire comes and goes. Desire is fluid. Desire has to do with, your stress levels and are you taking care of kids at night and, all these different things that affect desire. There's this amazing paper that came out last year called the heteronormativity theory of low desire in women partnered with men. Fantastic paper. Basically, so there's that theory of like, there's things that as women we're socialized to actually have low desire because we take care of more of the household work. So there's work inequality. There is the socialization of women being like, don't desire too much because then you might be a slut, because women who like sex too much, we don't like them either. So really you're like never encouraged to be like, what do I desire? What do I like? Am I allowed to even say I'm a person who desires? So there's all this socialization that happens to women, specifically when partnered with men, because they're the ones who are supposed to initiate. We're the gatekeepers. Again, this is all like gender norms and stuff like that. And so I'm like, you know what? We are biopsychosocial humans. We're not always, I just have low dopamine. I just have low testosterone. But certainly you can get into testosterone has been found useful for low desire, especially in postmenopausal women where testosterone might be low. So I love the complexity of it because it's not easy. And I like to explain it because people are like, well, what if I just buy this supplement on Instagram? Will that help? And you're like, placebo helps desire a lot, actually. Like if you think you're going to have better sex and desire that person more, it's going to work. So, but people will fall victim to internet advertising. And then there's the whole theory of like, is desire even important? is the point of your life to have desire for sex, or is your point of life to have good sex?
Hmm.
And do you need desire to have good sex? And I always like the exercise equation of like, I do not desire to work out all the time, but I'm pretty damn fit because I want exercise in
Right.
my
Hmm.
life. And when I do it or after it, it's great. And a lot of desire, especially with sex for women, will come during sex or after sex. Like, I forgot how good that was. Like, I never prioritize that because I always forget how good that was. But that was so great. Can you
That's
remind
such
me
an
after? Or like, I'm into this
that's
now. I'm having
so
a good time
interesting
now.
because I think Kevin's going to agree with me that guys are like ready to go. We're like, all right, like we finished that. We're like, that was awesome. Like guys are like, oh yeah, that's great. Like exactly like how I
Yep.
wanted to do it. And it's a different perspective. It's a very different way of thinking. And so because it's like a
Yeah.
reminder is what you're saying.
Rosemary Bassan, totally. And Rosemary Bassan was the one who published like, maybe desire doesn't come first. Maybe this isn't linear for all humans. Maybe it can come in the middle or maybe it can come afterwards. And so people get so hung up, they'll come to a clinic and they'll be like, are you sexually active? No, I just don't have any desire. And it's like, well, I don't have desire for, eating well, but like I prioritize it and then I'm happy I do it when I do it. Like we always think like it comes first on the bus stop. And so one of the chapters in my book is like F desire,
Right.
of like maybe we should just work on having sex worth desiring
Mm-mm.
instead of like waiting for this first bus stop to then go have sex.
That's so interesting. Um, Kevin, you were going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah. So, I like the way how you said, like, I do see these IG ads where I see where it's like, you take this one supplement and it's going to fix your
Yeah.
desire issues. Right. But, as, we are doctors and, we try to like to break things into different facets. So why don't we just focus on like just a chemical aspect of it? Because, and guys, we do use testosterone to help in one portion for treating desire. So how about for women? Is there something like testosterone, or as you touched on, you can use testosterone in women to help with one aspect of desire?
Yeah, testosterone is very interesting in America. There is the Australian FDA has an Australian approved product for females. So it's dosed for,
Oh,
female dose. And what we got to back up for, because I think a lot of people don't understand that women have
right.
testosterone. Because what we did
Right.
is we gendered hormones, right? Like we all
Mm,
gendered hormones in med school without knowing it. Like testosterone's the male hormone,
that's
estrogen's the
true.
female
Yeah.
hormone. And what we did when we gendered them is we erased the fact that there's testosterone in all bodies.
Just like estrogen. Just like
So
estrogen.
your
Just
typical,
saying. Yeah.
just like estrogen.
True.
Yeah, yeah. And depending upon where you are in your cycle, for a woman who's premenstrual, she'll have more testosterone in her body
Yeah.
than estrogen. It's just
Interesting.
1/10 of the male
Right.
dose, right? But you never know that because testosterone's deciliters per
Right.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah, and estradiol's right. Like they're actually measured differently,
Yeah.
so you'd never see like the testosterone. I actually had to like do the
Yeah.
conversion for my book to like point out that we actually have a lot of testosterone. But so first you have to like remind people that all bodies have testosterone, and then you say, well, ovaries make testosterone, and that goes down also perimenopause, postmenopause. And if there is a hormone for desire, it is testosterone. And again, it's not one to one. You can give lots of people testosterone and their desire is not
Correct.
any different. But you give some people testosterone and they're like, yeah, sex is a lot more interesting to me now. So that's what we do. We use a male product, right? Usually test them 1%. You dose it at 1/10 the dose. You have to be on it for a while, 3 to 6 months, because it's a little slow, it's not a light switch. And they say if it doesn't work by then for your desire, it's probably your low desire is probably not from a low testosterone condition. But the big question of why don't we have a female testosterone dose in this country, of like, it's a cheap hormone, you can't patent it. Who's going to do it? The FDA said we require $1 billion study, because the bar for safety in women in research in our country is actually much higher than the bar they use for men. So to get a new testosterone product, it's like, some millions to get a man approved. For a woman, they said it's going to be $1 billion. So who's going to do it? And if you did it, you'd put pink packaging on it and charge $700, which nobody would buy it
Right.
because you can just use the male
Right.
stuff.
Well, we
dosed
saw
at
that
1/10%.
with some other drugs.
But maybe
Yeah.
more than you wanted to know, but it's
No, it's very
fascinating.
interesting. And we've seen that problem with other drugs, like flubanserin and stuff like that for sure, where it's been very expensive and hard to get for other
how
abuse.
about flibanserin?
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about flibanserin?
Yeah. So there's bremelanotide and filbanserin. So filbanserin's
Right.
Addy, right?
Yes.
Am I
Yes.
getting my
Yes.
generics and
Yeah.
my okay, so Addy came around, was studied initially as an antidepressant.
Right.
Worked kind of crappy as an antidepressant. This is kind of like the Viagra story
Right.
too, right? Like worked kind of crappy.
So just to
high
give
blood
people a
pressure.
background, flibanserin
And
is like
but
considered the female Viagra. That's what we're talking about right here.
Yep. Although technically
Correct.
different because Viagra works on blood flow
Absolutely.
and arousal, and filbanserin is more
Right.
desire.
Right.
Again, going at the bio of the biopsychosocial, that maybe it's just a dopamine.
Right.
Maybe if you just had some more dopamine. Dopamine gets released, interestingly enough, dopamine gets released in the pursuit of something that is desirable. So if I'm like, let's say I've got chocolate cake upstairs, right? I'm getting a dopamine release by pursuing that chocolate cake because that's worth it.
Right.
So people think dopamine is released for the event of like, no, it's actually released. It gets
It's
us out of our
anticipatory and like a reward chasing your goal kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's where the whole sex worth desiring comes in. Because if you're having shitty sex in the first place, I can give you all the testosterone and filbanserin in the world, and you're like, it's kind of like, Swiss cheese to me. I can take it or leave it. It's not.
No,
my
but
favorite
that's true with men. It's true with men too, right? Because if we have, if there's a partner relationship issue, I don't care if you want to have sex, you're still not going to have sex. You're not going to be doing it because there's another barrier there. 100%. The desire with that person is not there.
So I agree. And that's why, like, for me, I wrote the book. So I'm like, women need to know all of this before they take a med, it doesn't work, and then they're a medication failure. And now they feel crappier because they've failed the med, right? So to me, I'm like, the education has to come first. So it was a crappy antidepressant, but a lot of women said like, hey, I desired sex more and I kind of liked it. Like, I kind of liked the sex more. And they're like, what's up with that? Does it, is there something to that? And in the studies, it does work better than placebo. Again, just like Viagra, huge placebo effect.
1,000%.
You give a sugar pill to somebody and like their sex life gets better, right? So there's that. But the thing is, it works for some people. We just don't know who it's going to work for. But that's kind of like how, antidepressants work too. Of like, it works for some people. We have to try. You can get it pretty cheap now through a specialty pharmacy. It's incredibly safe. The side effect is it's helping you sleep. So I'm not opposed to this medication at all, but I never want somebody to be like, oh, turns out we were just in like couples therapy and that's why I had low desire, not because of this medication didn't work.
That's a good point. So tell us about, this desire mismatch in relationships, because I think that's what we're kind of leading towards here. We're kind of establishing, guys, that we're always testing this desire, and for women it's almost like it sounds like to me like when I'm like I don't know if I want to do something, and then I do that event, say it's like I don't want to go to this dinner with these people or something, and I go, it's like, I'm really glad I did that. I definitely want to do this again. It sounds like it's that kind of situation. So can you explain this issue of desire mismatch in relationships and what it is, how common it is?
Yeah, it's so important to normalize it, right? Because I think, I don't know if we get it from Hollywood or where we get this idea of like the couple's desire has to be the same. And you're like, nothing else is the same in a relationship, right? Like you like Toyotas, I like Hondas, I like pizza, you like spaghetti.
Right.
Like you're two different people. Why would you be perfectly matched on desire, right? Especially when this is something couples I think never talk about, but it's like, what does sex mean for you, right? Whereas the guy's like, it means I'm close to you. It means that you're the one. And the woman, and I'm gender stereotyping, this is not always how it is. But the other partner might be like, I need to feel close to you in order to have sex with you. And then these two people are living in the same house and they never have sex. But like what sex means, right? Is it a fascinating question to ask your partner of like, when do you feel like you're sexiest? When is a good time for you to have sex? The afternoon is the better time because I have way more energy than like after all the kids go to bed. Right? Of like figuring it out instead of like needing to have it one person's way as much as one person wants to have it. And then the other person's like, this isn't sex worth desiring for me anymore. I'm just doing it for somebody else. And so normalizing mismatch and then realizing it's not the low person's job to come. Let's say there's a low and a high. It's not the low person's job to rise to the high person's level. They can't do it. You can't make me eat pizza that much. I will start
Right.
rejecting pizza all the time. Like, just normalizing it like that is like, oh, okay, well, what works for our relationship? And how can we prioritize this? Because if this one's always pursuing and they get sex 1 in 7 times, they're going to pursue more to get that one. And then they're going to be like, ugh, I hate saying no all the time. People hate saying no to sex. They feel bad about it, but like they don't want to have sex right now. So really conversation and talking to each other. And that's like where the intimacy is built. It's like, how can we make sex work? You want to be in a sexual relationship with me? Okay. How can we make this work with our busy schedules, our different desire levels, but prioritize us as a sexual couple?
I think that's a great point. And that's what a lot of this we always kind of get back to, is that communication is key. And for some reason, when it comes to desire and sex, guys and women may not want to just converse about that.
Yeah.
And it's maybe just
We think
the
it's
simple
so
answer, the
scary.
simple answer, just talk,
Talk.
be truthful, be honest with each other. And yeah, like, hey, I got more energy in the afternoon. That's when I really want to do it,
And it's so simple. I never thought about
Totally.
it. But on that note, though, so let's say, couples age, their appearances change, relationships change as well. So, let's say you're open about the conversation, but how about like that physical attraction is not there as much anymore? And,
Yeah.
that kind of comes from women too, from both sides. So, kind of how do you approach that? How can couples overcome this?
Yeah. Well, attraction is like very complex. It's kind of like desire, right? Of like, the reason why you're not attracted to somebody, it could be physical. It could be a trust issue. Trust got broken, right? It could be like somebody really made you upset about something and it's still not resolved, right? And so you say you're not attracted to them, but you're like, what actually is it where I don't want to, participate with this person anymore? Sometimes it's just distance, or like you've turned into like a parent management team instead of like two people who are attracted,
Yeah.
who like got together because they were attracted, they had similar interests, and really prioritizing like, spend some time with this person, like doing fun stuff. Again, looking at like the dopamine that goes up, but like dancing and laughing, going to comedy, like things that get your enjoyment up with that person really does help, as far as being like, oh yeah, you're pretty cool. You don't just parent my children with me. Like, it's good to know. I forgot. Of like prioritizing time together to do that. And, again, if it's just physical and you were just there for the physical, of like, a lot of people will be like, I know bodies age and I'm aging too, and they have the grace to love me and we're doing this together. And I think if it's more, then you'll see mismatches of like, I really love fitness and eating healthy, and they've totally let themselves go, and they drink too much and blah blah blah. And then you're like, maybe a marriage therapist, couples therapist, to figure out like, are you on the same trajectory in life?
Yeah, it's a great point.
But yeah, I'm not gonna say like fake it.
Can you fake it till you make it?
No.
You can't fake it till you make it.
Can you fake it? You can't fake it. The penis doesn't.
No,
lie,
it's a truth teller for sure. So you've been giving us some really good information. We've talked about all this desire and this mismatch, but it's making me think that as we get older and this desire changes, often guys still continue to have this desire, but it can obviously change for women too. And how do guys, if they start noticing their partner is decreasing in desire, like how do you approach them? How do you discuss this? Like, is there a tactful way of doing so?
Yeah, use I and we statements, not you statements.
Good advice.
No, yeah.
You have a problem with
said,
like literally this happens. Like the guy will come in.
I don't sound like a dick.
The guy brings the woman into the doctor, and then he's like, she has low desire. We need it fixed. And you're like, yeah, you're real hot. Like everybody wants to sleep with you. Like that's the quintessential like be the partner worth desiring. But I think for a lot of people it's like, we I feel more connected to you when we maintain our sexual bond. It's important to me that we have a sexual relationship. How can I help? What's going on for you? Like leading with curiosity is going to get you so much forward than like, why don't you want to have sex with me anymore? You're going to see like people are like the defenses go up. You're not going to get the truthful answer.
Right.
You're not going to like get the intimacy that is to be found within that conversation. Right. And here's the thing, like in modern times, we've got dopamine on demand.
Yeah.
Like think about back when like we didn't have lights and there was nothing going on in town and we didn't have phones and like
It's
sex was
true.
a pretty
It's
big
really
draw.
true.
Yeah.
Like you know how
That's
easy
a
my
really good
you know
point.
how
That's a
easy
good
my
point.
dopamine is? Like I can get dopamine so hard with like Netflix and Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Yeah.
Sex is actually a pretty big ask. Like that's work. I got to like
It's a great point.
dance with somebody. So to realize like
That's a really
sex
good
for
point.
some people, you can get dopamine way cheaper, way easier, and you don't have to leave the couch. And you can do it in front of the kids. Like it's nice. So to be like, it's a kind of, hey, you got to put on your running shoes to go on a run. Like, sex is actually a little bit more of an ask for some people. And I'm not saying like give up everything else, but to realize, like, I have to realize how much my body wants ice cream and
Ugh.
Netflix on the couch. Like, I love it. I might have spontaneous desire for that.
Yeah.
But like realizing, like, okay, but we want to prioritize our sexual relationship. Let's prioritize it then. Let's block out some time. Let's figure out what gets you in the mood. And the other thing of like, we're not all light switches. We come home from our jobs, we've got dinner on the table, I got to put the kids to bed. Of like, do I want to have sex right now? No, I do not, because my brain was not in sexy mode for the last 23 hours. But we can learn to be like, oh, right, we're going to prioritize our sex life. Okay, good. Give me 20 minutes to do some yoga. Maybe just go be by myself in the bed for a little bit and like relax with some music. And then come join me. And I'm going to be in such a better headspace. And it's really like we don't learn how to transition our nervous system, like from sympathetic cortisol, go, 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 to this parasympathetic, accepting, relaxing, being in the present moment. And we think like, well, that I'm not there, so I must not want sex. It's like you can actually learn to get there if you want to.
That's a great point. I think I read somewhere on the internet, they were like, it was like nostalgia for like the times like 15 years ago, and it was saying something like standing in line in the bank. Like right now, standing in line in the bank, I have so much dopamine firing because I'm on
Yeah.
Instagram, I go on Twitter. There's so much things going on. But 15 years
Oh.
ago, you were just standing there in line in the bank,
It's terrible.
just standing there, nothing. Probably thinking about having sex with your partner
Yeah.
later on that night
That's a
and getting
great
ready.
point. Oh.
Yeah,
So
totally. Our brain has been taken away from like sex is just one thing that's actually more work for some people than the readily available dopamine that's out there.
But you bring up a good point, and I think that is for guys. Sometimes when we desire sex, we just think we can just go for it then at that moment. But communication is important. It's like, hey, maybe like I desire you right now, but like, what do we need to get you there? Like, do you need an hour? Like, what do you need to do? Like, let's do it so that we're both happy, we're both ready, we're both in the mood. And I think guys don't think that way often, because I think you bring the important point of, women's desire just works differently than men. And, so to acknowledge that and understand your partner in that way, I think just makes that relationship better and that experience better. So it's just a really good point you brought up with, kind of getting the mood right. It doesn't have to be right now. It could be, when we both are in the mood.
Yeah. And like the way we respond, right, to our spouse is like really important. Is like if you get grumpy because she says no, if you get mopey, and I see this all the time, and Justin, I want to do this research with you because it's not researched, of like the amount of people who like have sex with their partner just to get them to like behave a certain way.
Yeah.
They don't want to, they're just going to mope and they're just going to blah, blah, blah. And if sex is a tool to get your partner to behave a certain way or not behave negatively, you're not going to like sex as much. It's being used for something else, right? And like, and we don't have a lot of, I would love to quote our
Let's do
paper
it.
on that in the future, but like really realizing the role that we play, and like, it's okay for somebody to say no to you and not have sex tonight, and like be an adult and like be able to handle that. And it doesn't mean your relationship's over. But I think, it's very human to be like, I just think everybody thinks like me. 'Cause
Right.
that's how we all think. Of like, just because a penis is ready to go doesn't mean a vulva is ready to go. Like it needs to get aroused, engorged. It needs to have blood flow. It needs all the same things. And we completely neglect that there are female erectile structures that need to be turned on also. We just, when we really treat a female sexual body as like a vagina to put a penis in, we're completely neglecting what she needs to enjoy her sexual experience.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that with Dr. Stryker. Sex is not just penetrative sex. There's much more to that. But kind of on a related topic on that, we've now kind of explored there's a difference in sexual desire between men and women. But why don't we kind of go down into like the differences in orgasms between men and women?
I'll try my best. I don't know if I'm a pro. And just to wrap up desire, like there are men with low desire, there are women with high desire. Like, and she's blamed no matter what. I have more desire than my male partner. I'm still the problem.
And
right? And so it's really trying to it's still trying to, because in our society, the male's desire is the default. Her desire is too high or it's too low. It revolves around his. And what I'm really trying to say is like, let's be a little bit kinder to all the humans of like, it's okay for a guy to not want sex all the time. Like, that's okay. We've gender stereotyped them as well. They feel super crappy when they're like, I don't actually want sex all the time. We're like, that's okay. You're human. You're not Hollywood, So I think everybody can benefit from just understanding desire a little bit more. I digress. On to orgasm.
It's a good point. So tell us about the
I've never had a male orgasm, so I don't know how that works.
Well,
gotta ask from personal experience. I think that what you'll find in the textbooks and stuff is the big difference for some, not all. That's all sex talks, right? Some, not all. Is the refractory period. And then the male refractory period and that's the time that basically it's a reboot, right? Of like, I have an ejaculation and there's this period that goes by before I can have an ejaculation again. And that can be a very short refractory period, or it tends to get longer as you age. So like, I really can't have sex again for like 2 days, 3 days, whatever it might be. Whereas they say women don't really have that refractory period. She can easily have another orgasm if she wants. She might not want to. And the other thing I think about female orgasms, and I think this is true also for male orgasms though, is like you can actually like learn to have longer ones, shorter ones, more intense ones, some mellow ones. Like once you get into like understanding your body and the role of your breath, you can be like, I want this one to last for a while. I'm just gonna chill out in an orgasm for a little bit.
That sounds great.
And like that might be mind blowing to people, right? But like really understanding your body and like getting curious about it and being like, well, this vibrator makes my orgasms do this. This vibrator makes my orgasms do that. Like there's a lot to learn there. And I think the concept of a female like discussing her orgasms like that, again, we don't like women who like sex too much. So it's like almost an uncomfortable thing to be like, this is a normal bodily function. You can figure out how to, play with it a little bit if you want.
All right, Dr. Casperson, this has been so far a great conversation. Let's kind of pivot over and let's talk about female sexual dysfunction. What is it and how common is it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that's relatively new. Like, especially as urologists, I'm going to take you back to my residency, which was 10 years ago. And I was told that women were complicated. We were difficult to figure out. I remember being like, we might never figure them out. And me just like believing it because that's what my attendings told me. And this was in the world of like all erectile dysfunctions fixed by Viagra, which we know is not true also. Right. But it really hit me like 3 years ago, which kind of like started this whole journey for me of like, who's taking care of the women who are supposed to be sleeping with the men that I'm giving Viagra to? Right. And I assumed the gynecologists were taking care of them. And then I asked my gynecologist friends and they're like, no, we didn't get any training in that. Like in all fairness, they're very busy, right? They've got all the other things.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, nobody's taking care of the women. Did you know women are 50% of the population? These are not like a small minority. This is a very large group of people that nobody's taking care of. Right. And then you look and you're like, oh, when you put in a mid-urethral sling in residency, do you know where the arms of the clitoris are? Do you know how close you are to the clitoris when you're putting in a mid-urethral sling?
You're pretty close.
You're effing on top of it. And nobody ever, like, I that was not ever explained to me. It was only me being like, pretty sure that's like going around the arms of the clitoris once you understand the clitoris, right? But so the point being, like, it's very new that anybody's actually giving a shit. So, and I think urologists are the perfect people to give a shit. Can we swear?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
because we're very comfortable with genitals. We're already comfortable with genitals, right? They're homologous structures. We got the penis, we got the clitoris, same. And we are already understanding experts of the pelvis, right? So I think urologists are
Right.
the perfect people. Plus, we're treating and this is very interesting, ethical or question of like when a guy comes in, he's got erectile dysfunction. He's married. Who's asking it? Does it matter? Do we ask about the partner? Do we ask, hey, is she on vaginal estrogen? Are you using lube so it doesn't hurt her when she's 54? Do we care about the partnership or do we just care about an erect penis? And you're going to get different answers based upon
Right.
who you ask. We were like, you just do the individual, and you're like, yeah, but that individual exists within a sexual relationship, and you're affecting that sexual relationship. Which I would love to see a debate at the AUA on: do you treat the penis or do you treat the couple?
It's a great
That'd be a
debate.
great
It's a
debate.
great debate.
Yeah, I want to see it happen. I'll go on the couple side. I'd argue that any day of the week, because you see women bring the Viagra back, and you laugh, and then you realize, wait, hold on, there's a legitimate problem going on here. So yes, female sexual dysfunction. It can be arousal issues, desire issues, orgasmic issues, genital urinary syndrome of menopause, which is absolutely huge, underdiagnosed, underappreciated, and very simple to treat. Clitoral phimosis, right? Just like penis, the penis has phimosis, the clitoris gets phimosis. So it's really an amazing field that's biopsychosocial. It covers all aspects. And it's not scary and it's not difficult and it's not hard. And, all the things that like sound nice, but it's actually a way of like dismissing that we care about those people.
Right. But it's also very, very common. I think that's important for guys to know, just as common as erectile dysfunction is, almost 50% of the population has experienced, erectile dysfunction. About 50% of women have experienced some aspect of female dysfunction almost. I think the data is really showing like in the 40s, 42%, 45%, US and around the world. So, that commonality is very important for guys to understand, I can have issues with my penis. My partner may have issues with desire, painful intercourse, issues with their vulva, issues with arousal, orgasm. Now, identification of that. Obviously, it's easy for a partner to figure out that if you have erectile dysfunction, but how can guys identify these things? Is there a better way to open up the communication route for identifying female sexual dysfunction? Because we talked about desire, but that's really only one aspect of it, as you alluded to. For female sexual dysfunction, there's a lot of different things. And how do you start a conversation if you're worried about it? Because statistically speaking, almost half of their guys' partners listening to this are probably having some kind of issue that maybe they don't know about.
That's right. Well, I think number one is normalizing that pain is never normal, never okay. And I think guys do know. A lot of guys do know that their partner's having pain with sex, but like the partner's like, it's fine, just get it in and then it'll be fine. Like really kind of dismissing pain. And you can, the women will come to see me and they're like, I have two problems. I've got pain with sex and I've got low desire. And I'm like, I'm gonna make this easy. I'm gonna only give you one problem. You have pain with sex. We don't desire things that are painful, right? Like, of course your desire for sex goes down when you have pains. And pain is very big. It's very, very common. And it, multitude of reasons. It's probably a whole podcast episode, but going into like, not just being like, well, she says it's okay, so like, let's just do it. Of like, no, you're setting up like an avoidance pathway in the brain every time you give somebody pain. So pain is one of them. The changes after having a baby, the changes while you're breastfeeding, the changes if you've had a hysterectomy, the changes with perimenopause, your sleep. People are like, if you're exhausted, and they have this data with shift workers, right? Like people who work at night or exhausted people, like they don't want to have sex. Your body's like, I need to survive, not have sex.
Yeah.
So like, just even like your quality of sleep on your sex life can affect it. But yeah, female sexual dysfunction is as common as male sexual dysfunction.
I want to go back to you kind of touched on perimenopause and menopause there. We have listeners all ages, and I see a lot of patients, guys who come in, they talk to me, they're like, yeah, my wife's going through perimenopause, they're going through menopause. Can you kind of explain to our listeners, like, what is happening and how are women's bodies changing during that time?
Yeah. So the ovaries have a shelf life, basically. And the definition of menopause is the 366th day after not having a natural period. So it's a year of no periods is the definition, which is a crappy definition because like hysterectomies, IUDs, all the
Right.
things.
Hmm.
But so we kind of have to guess, but in Western societies, 51 is the average age of menopause. Perimenopause is basically means surrounding menopause. And it's described as up to 10 years prior. So if you got average age of 51, which means some have 50% or before then, and then you've got the 10 years before that, you start having perimenopause symptoms in your mid to late 30s is not unreasonable. Um,
Wow.
but there's no blood test for it. I can't do an x-ray and tell you. So it's like, the lovely diagnostic stuff that Western medicine loves to do to be like, yes. I think what's happened in our society is we've completely ignored it. We basically took hormones away from people after the 2001 Women's Health Initiative study. And then doctors didn't learn how to treat menopause. And there's a lot of bad health outcomes because we're not treating menopause. But because we didn't have an effective treatment anymore, we kind of just blew it off and we're like, I don't know, maybe that's what's going on, but I don't know. And doctors are not great at treating this stuff. But it's very real. It's your hormones going down to prepubertal
Yep.
levels. It's very interesting. They're like Instagram is going big with menopause right now. But somebody's like, menopause is a hormone deficiency. And
Yeah.
like when a man has low testosterone, we call it a hormone deficiency. So to me
Yeah.
as a doctor, I'm very comfortable being like, menopause is a hormone deficiency. People
Mhm.
get all up in their bunches about it's not a deficiency because it's natural and blah, blah, blah. And it just shows you how differently we treat women than men.
Mhm.
Like if a man comes to my office at 55 with low testosterone, I'm not like, well, it's kind of natural. And like you're getting older. Like it's
That's so true.
laughable.
That's
We
so
don't
true.
we
Ugh.
don't do it to men. And I think that's my superpower as a urologist is I treat all genders. So I
Yeah.
see how we treat men. We give them the testosterone. We care about their quality of life. And then here we're arguing with the women of like, should we even call it a deficiency? Because it's natural. And if we call it a deficiency, that means you're broken. And it's like it's a medical term to describe your hormones being low. Like, come on. Right. But so it's fascinating how we treat the genders very differently when it comes to hormones.
It's such an excellent point.
Yeah.
Everyone, you're right. On Instagram, TikTok, everyone's like, men's testosterone from 20 years ago is dropping. We need to do something. We need to fix society. And then here you are. You're right. It's like, oh yeah, well, we're sitting here as women and we lose our our hormone levels, and everyone's like, it's fine, I guess. But it's kind of it is problematic in many ways. But
Yeah.
to go to this aspect of menopause and bringing it back to sex, how does menopause impact female anatomy, especially when and impact their relationship with sex, their sexual interactions with their partners, and like penetrative sex and things like
Yeah.
that?
Thank you guys so much for having this topic on your podcast because so many people don't know. And like education is the best way to empower people and getting
Right.
rid of all the fear. And I actually got into menopause. Like I am one of I don't know how many other urologists are actually NAM certified, North American Menopause Society certified. I got certified because I'm like, I know so much about this now because of my
Hmm.
podcast and because of sex. Because people
Right.
kept coming to me and they're like, well, I don't have sex because of menopause. Well, I don't have sex with my wife because of menopause. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what's up with menopause and sex? Let's see what the data says. And the data says the top two reasons that women stop having sex after menopause is number one, symptoms of menopause, and number two, availability of partner. I always tell people I can't
Wow.
help you. I can't help
Hmm.
you with the second problem. that's
Yeah.
that's on
Yeah.
that's on you. That's the dating websites. But so if you're having hot flashes, if you have worse anxiety, if you're sleeping poorly, if your vagina is dry, all the symptoms of menopause, you're less likely because people are like, is it just estrogen? Right. And
Right.
in a roundabout way, yes. Estrogen is not, again, going back to the testosterone's really your desire hormone. You give people estrogen, their desire doesn't really change all that much. For some people, it does, but for some people, it doesn't. And you can do rat studies, and you're like, yeah, their desire doesn't, but their receptivity increases. Estrogen is more of a receptive sexual hormone, but it fixes all the menopause symptoms. I'm sleeping better. My moods are more stable. I'm not
Hmm.
hot flashing all the time, like all that stuff. And then they're like, I just feel better my joints don't
Right.
ache.
Yeah.
Like if guys were like, my joints ache, and we're like, well, try some wine. We're like, we
So-
can fix joint aching. It's called hormone treatment, right? Like, and then they want to have sex more because they just feel better. They feel more like
Right.
themselves. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So inadvertently, we don't give estrogen to increase your desire. We give estrogen to treat your menopause. Now you're feeling more like yourself. You're feeling better. Your desire goes up. So does
But
that
but
answer the
also,
question?
yeah, and also, and vaginal estrogen has also been shown to help, especially if you're having issues with vaginal dryness. That could be a case where, like, I've seen where women are like, I just don't want to have sex as much because it hurts a lot more.
Yeah, it hurts.
But vaginal estrogen it's a great resource and has been,
Yeah.
I think,
I mean,
done wonders.
I'm on the vaginal estrogen as preventative medicine bandwagon. I'd love to see studies again, but we don't have it. So vaginal estrogen is so safe. It's over the counter in multiple countries. It just went over the counter in the UK for various reasons. It's fascinating. But that's how safe it is. Number one, it is hundredths of a percentage less than systemic menopause hormones, which is still way lower than you age 25 hormones. Like vaginal estrogen is nothing. This is skincare. This is like putting sunscreen on my face and wondering why
That's
my foot gets burned. It's like, because it doesn't get there. It's just like
that.
so minimal amount. But yeah, I like it as preventative medicine because in Western medicine, I come to you when stuff's broken.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
urinary tract infections. I've got, I stopped, so
Mhm.
many of my women, I stopped having sex 7 years ago because it hurt. And I'm like, did you
Mhm.
know that that's a menopause thing and it can be treated? They're like, no, they don't know. And their partners don't know either. But so I like preventative medicine starting at age around 55. Again, I can't give you a guideline on that, but why
Right.
come to me already broken? Why come to you with the sun damage? You're going to be on sunscreen, right? So I'm like sunscreen and seatbelts. That's where vaginal
Great
estrogen is
analogy.
in my
Great
world.
analogy.
Genital urinary
That's so
syndrome of
great to know.
menopause. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 50 to
No,
80% of postmenopause people. This
yeah.
is the female genital structures and bladder became that way because of estrogen.
Mhm.
And so they have issues when you take the estrogen away.
Yeah.
I thought, you guys, I didn't learn this in urology. I thought that there were just 70-year-old women who were born without labia minora until I went to an Ishwish conference and they're like, yeah, the labia minora resorbs when you don't have
Yeah.
estrogen. And I was like,
It's wild. Yeah. It's
like,
crazy.
holy shit, things I didn't learn in residency. I'm like, I just thought some people were born without them and they just happened to all be 70. But like, that's a sexual structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
It
sexual
is.
structure.
It's concerning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's involved in arousal and blood flow and ability to orgasm. We need to keep them healthy. We give it estrogen.
I'm going to play this clip for a lot of my patients because, I think the one thing you pointed out is, and it's a struggle that I have, is so many women are actually so scared of, like, they're like, oh, no, but all the risks. And, pointing it out that it's actually over the counter in the UK, I think
It's
will really
helpful.
help. Yeah, it's
It's
super
helpful.
helpful.
This is
That's a
all
great
of this
point.
is interesting because I'm just a nerd on all this. But it's like, so the FDA has a rule, and the FDA's rule says we have to apply the black box warning to any formulation of this drug. And so super high estrogen formulations that we don't even use anymore, possibly associated from the Women's Health Initiative study, which we now know is highly flawed, trickles
Yes.
down to being on an estrogen cream label. And so they come to me, I tell them it's safe, I tell them it doesn't cause cancer, and then I tell them, you will read, if you are a label reader, you will read the opposite. And now you have to decide between your doctor telling you the truth and the FDA telling you the truth. And I'm actually working with a lawyer to go see if we can. We know people at Pfizer. We're actually working on getting this damn
very
label
cool.
changed because it
That's
is
very
preventing so many people from getting the care, the safe care that they need. And like it's a clockwork. I talk about vaginal estrogen and they're like, well, my aunt had breast cancer and my cousin had breast
Yeah.
cancer and my sister.
Yeah.
And I look at them because I'm a little saucy and I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, why is that relevant here? They don't know
Right.
why. They don't know where the estrogen caused breast cancer even came from.
Right.
And I'm like, it doesn't cause breast cancer. But we got to like, that's where you have to get before I can even get you treatment.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's so interesting, and I think it's enlightening for guys to know because, as you're saying, their partners may not want to engage, and there's that desire mismatch because of these things in a potential postmenopausal partnership. And if guys are actually informed about this now, maybe they can have that conversation with their partner. Hey, you know, I heard about this thing, and maybe it's something we can go talk to the doctor about. But you know, what other things though for men who have a partner who is either menopausal or postmenopausal, you know, what are ways in which they can, you know, be better and engage in sex in a, you know, in a more satisfying way with their partner? Is there something that, some nuances that guys at that point have to know about?
Yeah, let's give people the good news, right? So if you look at the
Yeah.
sexually satisfied people and like the experts at sex who are like the self-proclaimed, like, I'm having great sex, those people, they actually looked at them because they're like, we want to figure out what they're doing right.
Right.
And these are not young people. These are people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s. These are the people having the magnificent sex for various reasons. They're comfortable with their body. They're excellent communicators. They're willing to fail. They just want to, they prioritize time spent trying to have good sex, right? So like you can learn a lot from like it's Peggy Kleinplatz's book, Magnificent Sex. You can learn a lot from studying the people who are like, oh yeah, that's me. Right. And the good news is they're not young.
Yeah.
These are not 20-year-olds. So people, you know, that whole, like, I had a couple come in and they're like, well, if you're telling us that we could have sex like when we're older, and I'm like, you guys are in your 40s, like you're going to be fine but you got to know that it's possible. Right. I have people in their 80s having sex. They're completely happy. They're on some hormones, let me tell you, but like, and they use lube. But yeah, I think number one is lube. Right. We get dry skin, whether or not we're using estrogen yet or not. There is a barrier to care because we have to go to a doctor. We have to go to a doctor to get vaginal estrogen cream. That doctor might not know it doesn't cause cancer. That doctor might not care that your sex life is important to you. That doctor might not know the role of estrogen in preserving pelvic health structures. Right. So it legit is a struggle in this country to get access to care.
Big barriers.
Big barrier. I did not know that until I started being on Instagram and all the women started talking to me. Like I have so much more insight now. But so lube for orgasm. I would say the penis and the clitoris aren't self-lubricating organs. Don't make the vagina do all the work. So I love silicone lube. I love oil-based lube. If condoms isn't something people have to worry about, those are fantastic because they're long lasting. They just feel better. They're not like that tacky, sticky water-based lube stuff. And like,
well, we learned from Dr. Stryker, water-based lube is a no-go.
Yeah.
She taught us, you know, bad for the vagina.
Yep.
Don't use water-based. She said silicone-based, and she did tell us the oil does, like you said, with the condoms, you know, can cause issues with you know, breaking condoms. And
the other nice thing like for the winter, I know people who have sex in Florida don't have to worry about this, but like it's cold and the lube's cold. Like the oil-based is not as cold. It's very nice.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you know, I'll see women in my office for pain with sex, and they're like, my boyfriend told me I shouldn't use lube, and I'm like, is he this expert? Like, especially if they're putting erect penises in unaroused vaginas, which I think is an epidemic. And again, I don't see, there's not a lot of studies on this, but I think a lot of women are like, he wants to have sex, just put it in. And then they're like, I have pain. But you have to arouse the pelvis because it lengthens the vagina and tilts the cervix back and helps decrease pain. But people don't have adult sex ed. They don't know these things.
I think you need to repeat that because I think that is like something that I've never thought about for like anyone and never mentioned that. Can you just repeat that? So basically, you know, guys have to understand, you know, you can't just go in there, right? Is that right. What you're saying?
Yeah. I would say if it's not an 8 on arousal, don't penetrate. I'm like turning into a funny person.
It's such a
just because the penis isn't erect doesn't mean she's ready, right? And her amount of lubrication and moisture isn't always correlated with how turned on she is. A lot of people will correlate those two things. There's actually like a term for that. It's called like arousal desire non-concordance or something. But so that's why lube is important. She might be like really ready to go and just not have enough to lubricate the clitoris, the penis, the vagina. You know, well, you can help somebody asked me yesterday, I was doing a Q&A, and they're like, well, we have sex for a really long time, and I hate that I have to reapply lube so much. And I'm like, you chafe when you run 13 miles. Like, what do you want me to tell you? It's how
that's like a humble brag. It's like a humble brag.
Yeah. You know what I hate? But I mean, the other thing specifically to your question of like perimenopause and menopause is like dissociate sex from just being putting a penis in the vagina. That's
Right.
like the heteronormative theory is that's how it happens. And it's devastating for when the penis doesn't work. And it's devastating for when the vagina doesn't work. Right? Like we have such a narrow view of what sex is, of like, maybe you're just going to do your hands today, or just mouths, or just vibrators, or you're just going to, whatever you're going to do. It's like, it's so broken for people when one of those structures is broken and they don't know how to otherwise be intimate and be close and show their affection.
Right.
We can take a lot from our non-heterosexual relationships of like their definition of sex is, and they've done research on this, their definition of sex is way bigger than the heterosexual definition of sex.
It's a great point. It's a really good point. All right. I don't know. I think we kind of covered everything that we wanted to talk about. Kevin, what do you, any final thoughts or comments, Kelly? Anything you want that we missed that you want to mention?
No, I think it's good. I mean, I think what we're lacking in this country and what you guys are trying to help and what I'm trying to help is adult sex education. It's like we got this disease and pregnancy prevention plan before we were even adults or like having consistent sex. And then we're all like fumbling around, assuming things about each other and getting nowhere and feeling crappy. And it's like adult sex ed is going to change the world. Certainly going to help a lot of people out.
And I think it comes down to just communication. It's every one of these, the theme has been communication.
Yeah, it's never about sex, actually. That's what I've learned. It's never actually about sex. It's about feeling like I've been listened to and that you understand me. And like that's where the intimacy is in talking about this, not in the actual sex act.
That's great. Well, for our listeners, I'm sure most of our listeners know of you and have found you online, but where can everyone find you online? Where can they read your book? Tell us all of your information.
All the things. If they want me reading the book, I did the audio. So that's pretty fun.
Great.
You can find that on Amazon. I'm on Instagram at Kelly Casperson MD, and that's my website as well, Kelly Casperson MD. The book and the podcast are You Are Not Broken.
Beautiful. So I want to thank Dr. Casperson for coming on again. As always, guys, thanks for listening. Questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach out to Kevin or I at our Instagram platforms. Please follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, subscribe, download. We're on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify and iTunes. Give us a review, comment. 5 stars is always appreciated. You can also find us on our website. Kev's, what is our website?
The website is www.themanuppod.com.
And all of our Instagram, all of our platforms, social media handles are at The Man Up Pod. So you can follow us along there. For Dr. Casperson, Kevin, and I, thanks for listening. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.